without any clubs. So I'd like to invite the candidates to come forward and find your seat alphabetical order. So we have to my left Savannah Hughes, Betsy Brewer, and Ben Spalding. And thank you so much for coming out on this very busy night. So we are collaborating with the South Louisville Community Ministries, and Clara Lewis, would you stand up?
Please.
And our host tonight, thank you so much. A wonderful space for it. What? Oh, yes. We have three candidates here. Lonnie Joseph was unable to be here because of another commitment. Betsy Brewer, Savannah Hughes, and Ben Spalding will address Metro Council issues and District 21 issues through questions developed by our partner organizations, residents, councils, friends we know from church, other people, and the league. So we have 10 league questions that we're asking all the Metro Council candidates, and we have 12 submitted from your district. So the primary, May the 19th, is a historic first for Louisville, as it is nonpartisan. You can look at your ballot now if you're independent, Democrat, or Republican, and it's going to be interesting. I think a lot of people, especially independents, don't know that they can vote. So our educational purpose is really important, and as you all campaign, as you all talk to people, please tell them to go to the polls. I'm a poll worker and I really enjoy it, but it's kind of depressing when people don't come. So the League of Women Voters, as you know, is a grassroots nonpartisan organization. We never endorse any candidate, but we do work very hard with our voter registrations. We've got some forms back there. I assume all of you are registered. And we have a lot of other information about nonpartisan primaries and freedom of speech and First Amendment rights and things like that. So we invite people to join us in our work. This is as grassroots as it comes. When I ran for office, I remember going to union halls and knocking on doors, and it's humbling, it's exhausting, but this is democracy at work. So our candidates have gotten the rules, so let me tell you the guidelines that govern all the league forums. And there's another one going on at Berrytown Community Center as we speak. So I have numbers drawn which will determine which order the candidates will go in. And so whoever's first will go third the next time. So we'll just keep on rolling around. Equal time will be allotted to every candidate. We'll have an opening for each candidate of 90 seconds. We have magic timers on here that have music, so they'll have 30, 15, and stop signs. And the questions will have 60 seconds for answering, which means if we have 22 questions, we'll do by now. If you feel like you need to have a rebuttal, you can do that, but you have to use up 30 seconds of your next 60 seconds. Anyway, closing comments will be 60 seconds. So let's draw for order. So two. Three.
One.
Not confusing. Okay, so then you'll go first. So our time. Ready? All right, so then you can start with your opening comment.
Yes, so good afternoon, evening, everyone. My name is Ben Spalding. I am currently running for District 21 Metro Council on a progressive platform that's for the people, for everyone really. And it's on 4 pillars, 4 campaign promises. One, I plan on empowering immigrants because District 21 has the second most diverse zip code in the entire state of Kentucky, which is 40214. And I think it's important that we help those immigrants by providing more funding to places like the Americana Center and the Kentucky Refugee Ministries. I also plan on growing the TARP network as gas prices grow just more and more with this combat operation in Iran. I plan on also improving community safety by using social workers as first responders to nonviolent emergencies, because oftentimes a nonviolent emergency is a mental health emergency. And I plan on also, once elected, being more transparent in government by hosting town halls once every single month. And that's me. I'm the one to vote for.
Savannah, the second, Pastor Reset.
All right. Hey neighbors, my name is Savannah Hughes. I am running to be your next council person for District 21. I have been a District 21 resident for the last 4 years. I'm a homeowner. I come from a working class family, and I spent the last 7 years working in nonprofits and in advocacy groups, working for community empowerment, social impact, and building strong communities. I'm no stranger to the game when it comes to policy, advocacy, and politics, and my core skill set is working with marginalized groups, uplifting voices, and helping to navigate systems and break down barriers. It's part of why I'm running. I believe 21 deserves safer streets, strong community, and thriving small businesses. We deserve the infrastructure build up and financial push that we've contributed to this city for years and years and years. Hope tonight is a good explanation of really breaking down everybody's platforms. I'm so excited to see everybody, and I'll yield my time.
Okay, so my name is Betsy Rui. I currently represent you on Metro Council. And I've lived in this neighborhood for 16 years now. And I was on the Beachmont Neighborhood Association board for a decade. So I'm very familiar with this area. Okay, there's a dinkley. All right, so I'm very familiar with this area. I've worked with the community for years. And what we're doing currently in office. So I work very closely with the Louisville Coalition of Immigrant Support. That is basically an ad hoc group to funnel donations to groups that work directly with immigrants. And I've been involved with that since the week after Trump was elected. So when we knew that this was going to be a challenging situation, we started working on it immediately. I work regularly with Americana and work with the community centers, and I do a lot of things in our community. I've got you guys speed humps. I work on advocacy in Iroquois Park too, even though it's not even in our district. Everybody knows I'm in there every day anyway, so they let me do it. And and I do community meetings every month. And because we tend to have an east side and a west side, we alternate. So 1 month we have one at the Iroquois Library, and 1 month we have one at the Linview City Hall. And I saw my stop sign, so I'll quit.
You can see how these just go quickly. All right, so this is a general question. So you were number one. We'll start with you. What is the single greatest need in your district? And what will you do as a council member to address this need?
I think because we're in such a wide and diverse district, I think if you ask folks on the Preston corridor, whether you ask folks in Beachmont or Wilder Park, it differs. But I think one of the single greatest things is decades of disinvestment in South Bend communities in District 21. We are one of the biggest citywide budget generators between the economic impact from the airport, festivals, our close proximity to Churchill Downs. We invest a lot of money in this city, but we don't get it back. I think one of our biggest needs is revisiting the budget and reallocating neighborhood discretionary funds and community investment or capital infrastructure funds, and really bringing that back.
Okay, so the single greatest need we have here tends to revolve around poverty. It really makes me upset to see that we have people who stand on street corners begging for money because they can't afford somewhere to live. They can't find somewhere to live. And that causes, if you didn't have a drug problem, you didn't have a drinking problem, spend about 3 weeks out on the street and you will. So we need to have affordable housing. We need to have wraparound supportive care for those folks to get them off the street. They need to feel like they have someplace safe to go. And we need to ensure that our young people have things to do that are safe. When you talk about public safety, the first thing that might come to mind is locking up the criminals. But what if we go down to the source and make sure our young people have things to do that are good, that they're surrounded by positive role models? Okay, I'll stop.
Single greatest need in District 21.
Yes, so I think it's kind of a hand-in-hand issue. So it's one of those things where it's you have a lot of people who don't have money to do things, and as I've been talking to more and more community members, I can sit here and say it's X, it's Y, it's whatever. But almost every single person I've talked to has been talking about how there's apartments where people bring drugs into the neighborhood from those apartments on South Side, or there's people begging on the corner, and people begging on the corner for money on the interstate. And every time I talk to someone, it always comes down to money, money, money. You know what I mean? And while I would love to just say we're going to give everyone $100,000, unfortunately, that's not a realistic policy decision I can do. So what I would like to maybe say is just providing more infrastructure to give those people opportunities to not continuously lose out on life all the time.
Thank you. All right, let's talk about a tough issue. We had a forum last night on affordable housing. Let's talk about eviction. In District 21, many families facing eviction are also navigating unstable childcare, low-wage work, and limited access to transportation. How would you approach eviction, not just as a housing issue, but as a systems issue? And what would you prioritize in your prayer to reduce violence?
Okay, I'm first, right? Okay. So I recently attended the Beyond the Rent conference that was sponsored by the Metropolitan Housing Coalition. And we talk about rent and we talk about evictions, but one of the things that's frequently not talked about is paying your utilities, your LG&E bill, your water bill, which includes your MSD bill. So we were talking in there about ways that we can make those things more affordable. And some of the ideas that came to me as a council member, what we can do is we can work with LG&E and with MSD and the water company. There's a lot of fixed fees that are on your bill, and I'm sure you've seen them. And then there's late fees if you don't pay your bill on time. Do you think that helps somebody who can't afford to pay the bill in the first place? No. So if we can work with LG&E and MSD to get those fixed fees off of there for people who earn below a certain level, that can help make bills more affordable. Okay.
Stop sign. You got your minute.
Okay.
All right, so eviction, how would you approach eviction as not just a housing issue?
Yes, so eviction is a it's a large issue. Basically it's basically the sum of poverty. It's the result of poverty. So by asking how do you want to answer eviction, you're asking how do you want to answer poverty, and limiting the amount of bills you can do, limiting the amount of bills you can pay. That is certainly a great option. I also want to propose that maybe growing TARP network is something else I would like to propose, as that's one of my default campaign policies. As gas is just going to get more and more expensive, and that's something that's outside of Louisville's control. I believe that that's something that needs to be there, as a lot of people can't afford car payments, a lot of people can't afford gas, and just making TARP affordable, good, and an option that people really want to consider would really help people afford their rent, their bills, and everything that goes into your house.
Do you need me to repeat the question?
No, I got it, unless anybody wants to repeat it. Good whenever you guys are. All right. I've actually spent the last year working as a housing policy ambassador with Kentucky Youth Advocates on this exact issue, just on a state level with eviction. One of the biggest factors in housing after eviction is the fact that when an eviction goes on your record, it never shows whether the eviction was upheld in court or whether it was dismissed, just that it was ever filed against you. Almost 80% of eviction proceedings in Jefferson County result in dismissals. So what we have to work on a state level and on a city level is creating ordinances that help create eviction dismissal programs. So as soon as you go to court, if that eviction is amicably resolved and dismissed in court, it does not remain on your record so that renters have the ability to get housing afterwards. Beyond that, we have to look at continuing to expand programs in the city that focus on supportive assets and really working on broader incentives to raise the local minimum wage and lower rent prices.
All right. This is a general question that we ask all Metro Council member candidates. Each Metro Council member has discretionary funds for neighborhood development or capital improvements or concerts and things like that. What criteria would you use to disperse those funds to serve your district or to support the cause of another district? People get their money.
Okay.
Then.
Oh, okay.
This number of overview is actually very confusing.
Discretionary
We just count on her to tell us.
Yeah. So, I'll go ahead and start. So, what I would first, use my capital investment and discretionary funding on would be probably just working on the roads. And that's something that I see a lot of people complain about. One thing I did before I got here is I saw a Facebook post saying, what would you ask for candidates? And a lot of them were about the roads. I often tell myself, if you hear the same thing over and over, coming from a lot of different people, it's probably true. And if everyone is saying, work on the roads, work on the roads, work on the roads, then it doesn't matter how good my idea of what I should use that money for, I should be listening to the people. And if everyone's telling me to use my discretionary funding to fix the roads, then I should be using my discretionary funding to fix the roads.
Okay. Yeah.
So neighborhood discretionary funds and capital,
Just a second.
oops, sorry,
Time.
you didn't hear any of that. I knew that.
Okay, you know.
All right, so I think important, first and foremost for the public is having the importance of information around exactly what neighborhood discretionary funds are and capital investment funds are as they're allocated to districts. In fiscal year 2026, District 21 was awarded $75,000 in neighborhood discretionary funds. I think the biggest thing is making sure that as we're having community meetings, we're having community input on those discretionary funds as they're determined where they go and having easier access for folks to request them, whether they're neighborhood organizations putting on events for our children and sponsoring that. But I know that those neighborhood discretionary funds are in order to prioritize what the neighborhoods need. If that is funding your church's annual summer camp that gets the kids something to do, but maybe you need to have a permit paid for the city, that's important for what it's for. It's also important to invest in our community centers, help with those.
Okay, so there's two different buckets. There's the neighborhood development fund and there's the community infrastructure fund. So the neighborhood development fund, that is primarily used for activities. So like one of the things that we do is we help to sponsor the community concerts over here at the gazebo. And we also sponsor many different activities so one of the things we do, there's a lot of stuff that we do. And a lot of times what it is somebody else brings up a development fund that they want to fund for something for their community, and they kind of pass the hat. And so in council, a lot of times we'll put some money into the hat for something because we know that it benefits all of us. So we add it to that. But I know, I see. Okay, so the community infrastructure funds, primarily most of the time what they go for us is speed humps. But we also have money that 30 seconds, 10 seconds. We got money set aside to do a skate park over there by the off-ramp. So that's $125,000 that we found to help do that, to clean up an area that we know has been an ongoing problem. Okay, I stopped.
I have a grandson that goes to SPRAC down in Portland every day, which is the indoor park.
Oh, yeah, I've seen videos of that.
Yes, it's awesome. Okay, let's see. We rely, this is about prevention versus crisis response, and we'll start by.
I started last.
We invest most heavily once a family is already in crisis. What would it look like to shift Metro's resources upstream in District 21 towards prevention? What trade-offs would you be willing to make to do that?
I think the first basis is that investing in prevention and stability builds a healthier, more equitable world for everybody. We depend as a city too heavily on immediate police response for all different types of crises, which means if you come across somebody who may have overdosed, police come. If somebody, a neighbor, a family member, a friend is in a mental health crisis, the police come, because the deflection standards to respond are very, very strict and broad. I think the biggest thing is we have to make sure we shift our budget priorities and shift into a budget that invests more into prevention and funding and programs that support prevention and access.
Okay, so what you have with LMPD and their response, the way it is right now, it's an either or. Either you get the police or you get the social worker. The part that they forgot was the police and the social worker together. And those in there together. And it's vitally important that we ensure that we have enough mental health care and it's affordable. And it's something that people just get used to doing, like you go to the doctor. You go and you talk to your therapist or somebody like that, and it's just something that we do and we normalize. It's gotten a whole lot better in our society since COVID, but it's still something that people struggle with. So, yeah, to make sure we have access to that, and, okay, I'll stop. I'm repeating myself.
So, though I'm very in favor of having social workers respond to nonviolent emergencies, the whole goal of this is to not have the emergency happen in the first place, which, that would be ideal, is, no emergencies, am I right? So, one way that I could see Louisville shaping up is kind of focusing on harm reduction situations where whenever you see something going bad and community strengthening. So, we as a community can lift each other up, and also kind of to pair what Savannah said is also kind of increasing access to care and those kind of needs. And that's how I see just reducing the amount of mental health emergencies in the city in the first place, so you don't need to call 911.
I'd like to use 30 seconds out of my next question for a rebuttal.
Okay, so my next question, that's questions. It's about short-term rentals in this district and transitional housing. Do you agree or disagree that the Office of Planning should obtain proof of an applicant's residence when that applicant is seeking a CUP or conditional use permit for short-term rentals, but claims that the short-term rental is not the same property where the applicant resides? So should the Office of Planning obtain proof of that applicant's residence?
You want to
It's hard to hear.
Yeah.
It's hard to hear.
Okay, it's got short-term rentals, if they don't require proof of the applicant's,
But she wanted to use 30 seconds.
She wants to.
She wants
So
to
she
rebut
can,
that.
for the last question.
so she can answer my question. Was the first, do you agree or disagree that the Office of Planning should obtain proof of an applicant's residence when that person is seeking a conditional use permit for a short-term rental?
They already do that. I have one,
I do too.
and they did. Didn't they, Betsy?
Yeah.
Because Betsy was at our meeting. They already do that. And there's one.
I was at Boza yesterday, and there was an Office of Planning employee that said, when you get the conditional use permit, they do not ask for proof of residence. They do it the licensing
Yeah, they
but
did,
at the
they
night,
did in my case.
I will withdraw that.
Consensus there.
Yes, yes, okay. So, let's talk about communication. She can have
Yeah,
30
yeah.
seconds of the next question, so she has 60 seconds and 30 seconds. Okay. What D21 notifications and communications will you continue, and what new communications will you initiate to keep residents in this area informed?
And quick rebuttal to the last question, I want to be clear that it's not an either or response, whether you get a social worker or LMPD response. If you call 911, you're going to get an LMPD response. If you'd like a crisis deflection unit, which might include a licensed social worker sponsored by the program that it's under, you have to call a specific number, answer specific questions, and meet a very specific criteria. So I want to be clear that when we talk about city policy around that, it needs to be restructured how the crisis plan moves forward and is set up. Can you repeat the question? I'll take the time.
I can't remember where it is. Oh, what communications will you?
Communications, I think we absolutely continue a district newsletter. I think we absolutely continue neighborhood monthly meetings and town halls, but instead of having a bi-monthly split between both, I'd love to see 2 different ones each month, specifically for Preston corridor folks and folks east of 65, and one as well for folks to the west of 65, so both can attend monthly.
Okay, so currently we have Facebook, we have Instagram, and we have posts going up pretty much 4 days or 5 days a week. And instead, when we have our neighborhood meetings, we don't have the same topic at both of them. There's something different, like the one next week is over in the Preston corridor because they're much more dependent on using I-65 to get downtown. From over here, we can take the surface roads and get downtown, and it's not as confusing. For them, it's going to be harder. So we're having the I-65 corridor plan in there so people can get their questions answered, because I know how confusing all that stuff is when they put it out in an email. So it's a chance for everybody to get their questions answered.
Yes. So I plan on, I also plan on continuing the city meetings and the town halls. But I want to have one in each area corridor each month. And hopefully they would each get their own topics, because I really and truly believe in communication. If they have something to say, I want them to be able to tell it to me in person. And that line of communication is very important. And I feel like people have lost touch, at least I have, with the government and those face-to-face interactions. And I also plan on continuing the social media, the newsletter, and those are the ways that I feel that I want to continue. I feel that a lot of the lines of communication could also be amped up, so that way people can actually hear from the government and know what is happening from me personally.
All right, let's talk about community voice and decision-making. Residents most impacted by housing instability, job instability, are often the least represented in policy decisions. How would you meaningfully include District 21 residents, especially renters and low-income families, in shaping housing and economic policy?
We go into areas, and we knock on doors and we ask people directly what they want. So that's one way to make sure that you're actually reaching people. And I also, just to let you guys know, I am one of only 3 in Metro Council who works this as a full-time job. I'm in that office at least 4 days a week. I answer my own emails, and I have regular conversations with people about things that they're struggling with. And I take great pride and joy in solving their problems for them. And if that means helping somebody with housing, then we work with them to help them with housing. And I'd like to thank Claire over there for doing a fantastic job at eviction prevention and helping people stay in their housing. So that's one of the vital connections that we have to help people stay in their housing and get the supports that they need.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. Residents Workers most impacted by housing instability are often the least represented in policy decisions. How would you meaningfully include District 21 residents, especially renters and low-income families, in shaping housing and economic policy?
Yeah, that reminds me of something I had. I was interviewing someone at the library, and they were talking about how oftentimes immigrants aren't coming to the English as a second language, English ESL table, because right now they they don't want to go out in public because of fear of ICE and stuff like that. And I feel it's a similar situation where people who most need the help aren't going out and seeking it. So I plan on, and I think it's one of those things where we can boost messaging. I really like what Betsy's doing with the door knocking. I definitely think that's something that we could continue doing and maybe get more of. But I really, really like where that's going. And also maybe send out mailers. I know in my past with political activism, that's been good. That's gotten good response. And I really give my time because there's a lot more where that comes from.
We
Please
don't have
speak
enough
up.
time here.
Oh, really?
Well, you need to speak up a little bit.
Okay.
Okay,
I'm
you
sorry.
want me to repeat the question?
Yes.
Residents most impacted by housing instability are often the least represented in policy decisions. How would you meaningfully include District 21 residents, especially renters and low-income families, in shaping housing and economic policy?
Absolutely. When you're in public service and servant leadership, it requires the word public, and being and working with the public. And I think it's important that we not just create seats at a table anymore, but truly build a table where everyone is welcome and has access to a seat at. One of the most important things, besides going just door to door and asking people how they feel, is giving them an active role in the decision-making and the building process. I'm very adamant and inspired to create a neighborhood advisory council within the district, made up of individuals from each neighborhood across the district, so that as we're sitting at committee meetings, we can have folks with the real experience and real expertise speaking up and helping us make governmental decisions to navigate that, ensuring voices are truly heard, truly adaptable, and truly a part of that building, not just around it.
The term DEI has gotten fallen into disuse. So the waffle question is, what can you do to promote full community engagement with issues or committees? There's lots of boards and commissions to be on, so that the people from your district, all of them are represented. So it's full community engagement board. So we start with.
I think it's much. Okay, so diversity, equity, inclusion, but on committees. So the committees and the boards that the city has, they have very strict standards. And I was in market research and I really understand this back when I was in college, whatever. Anyway, so you get to the point where you need a Black Republican from Valley Station. Because you've got to make sure you've got a mix of income groups, political parties. Dottie's over there nodding her head because she's been through this process. You have to have a mix of income groups, political parties, males and females. So all that stuff has to balance out. And we're always looking for new members of committees. And it can be an interesting process to go through. But we're always looking for more people, and if you are interested in being on any committee or board with the city, please let me know. There's a place on the city's website, and we can get you into it, and we would love to have you. And once again, yeah, any of your friends, anybody out there who is interested in this, because we want that diversity.
I would say the website is very hard to navigate.
Uh-huh.
Then
So increasing community engagement, full community engagement on committees.
government boards, yeah,
Government
boards and
boards.
commissions.
Yes. So one thing that when it comes to full community engagement, or DEI as it's been coined. A lot of my experience with navigating all of that comes from a lot of my school years, where I went to J. Graham Brown School, where that was just part of growing up. I just knew how when my friend in 7th grade came out as gay, we were all like, okay, cool. So as far as adding to the boards of everything, boards in public office, it sounds like right now we have to play almost like we're almost playing Jenga with diversity, and that might not be the most tenable solution, but it also, if diversity is something that's very important, and it's working. So if it's working and it's not broken, let's not fix it.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion doesn't always mean seeking out the Black Republican from Valley Station. Sometimes it means making the means to join accessible. Just like you mentioned, Ms. Gale, the website is completely navigable. Finding information outside of the website is incredibly limited, and folks are not truly enamored or engaged or accessible to that process. If I don't have a computer at home because I'm low income and I maybe don't have access to Wi-Fi, I can't get on a website to navigate on my own. So I think the biggest part of diversity, equity, and inclusion means including people equitably across the board so that you have a diverse pool of applicants and engagers in with the process.
Thank you. All right, here's a very specific question about zoning. This question is about plan certain rezoning. Generally, when an applicant proposes to rezone a parcel of property, the applicant submits a plan. Once the applicant obtains the rezoning, frequently the proposed plan never transpires. What action, if any, would you as councilperson propose to prevent this from happening?
Can you restate the question?
It's a term called plan certain zoning. Generally, when an applicant proposes to rezone a parcel of property, the applicant has to submit a plan. Once the applicant obtains the rezoning, frequently it never happens. It's never built, never done. What action, if any, would you propose to prevent this from happening?
So this sounds to me like if this is happening frequently, if this was a one-time thing that didn't happen too often, this could be lost paperwork, lost deeds or whatever. But if this is happening more frequently, what this is sounding like to me is that that people are using this as a way to rezone property and not building it, as a way to maybe get something out of it, right? I have to make space for the deed. One thing you could do if they are rezoning property and not building on it is maybe have them make a down payment of some sort on it, a large one. So that way they can't chicken out of the rezoning.
Yeah, I think zoning is a really, really important question, especially with plan commitments. I think one of the biggest examples, I'm gonna say something, a lot of people are gonna have feelings on, and that's that data center that they're gonna build. Because that zoning change happened some years ago, and it's sat empty with no commitment. I believe in creating a 2-year stoppage, which means if you present a plan for rezoning, and your rezoning is approved, you must commit to your plan within 2 years, or the zoning reverts back to its original usage. Beyond that, I think, we're gonna have a lot of zoned lots that are already kind of grandfathered to that as we step into that. And I believe in creating a vacancy tax. If you own a parcel of land that's zoned and is not in use but could be used collectively for community purposes, you must pay a fee to the city. Whether that goes into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund or a neighborhood discretionary fund for where that's located, we can talk about that. But you must pay a vacancy tax or sell that property.
Okay, so first of all, we can't do a vacancy tax. We cannot create any new taxes. although there is one on the ballot coming up for you guys to vote on for some additional taxes to support Metro Parks. So what we do, I sit on planning and zoning, and what we add is what is going to be called a standard binding element. And what that says is if there's any change to the plan that's intended here, then it has to come back to planning and zoning. So that's the way that we help to control like bait and switch. And if they don't use it by a certain period of time, I believe the plan does expire. So, yeah, you can't just say, I'm gonna build these apartments and then sit on it forever. Because if you don't build the apartments, then it becomes null and void.
Editorial comment, except for certain developers.
Well, yeah, we all know we have sacred cows.
Well, let's talk about binding elements. When rezoning occurs, binding elements can be included if the applicant agrees to the binding element. An example of a binding element to which the applicant might agree is that no liquor store will be located on this property. If the property is again rezoned, the Office of Planning eliminates any prior binding element before proposing new binding elements, which means the new applicant would have to agree to a binding element such as no liquor stores will be located on the property. So the question is, do you believe the Office of Planning should eliminate binding elements already tied to the property when a new zoning application is received? Why or why not? So I start here.
I think they should. And I'm gonna say I think they should because neighborhoods change. Other developments pop up. We're in a really big crucial time across the city where they want to build something here, and now there's building something there, and they're rechanging something here. So I think it's important because the first time you go around, if you say no liquor stores, you can always put it back. It can always be a new binding agreement. But if something else has changed, and now we want to say, hey, I don't want a smoke shop on my corner. I don't want this, this corner store that's selling kratom and pipes on that corner. You can now add that to it instead of being completely stuck with an initial binding agreement as things develop in the neighborhood. I think it's good that we can go back to it anytime there's a new applicant. I think it shows how willing an applicant is as well to negotiate and be a part of the community as they build into it.
Okay. I believe that you should look at the existing binding elements and make sure that they comply with what you expect in the community now. Many times they do, but many times we have to add things, especially things like no liquor stores, no vape shops, no bars, things like that we very frequently add in there to protect the neighborhoods. Because we know what we like our neighborhoods to be like, and when you bring in too many liquor stores, when you bring in the vape shops and things, it affects the quality of your neighborhood. And we want to make sure that our neighborhoods are safe places that we feel comfortable. We are very fortunate here in Beachmont. We got a good neighborhood. This place is tight. There are many neighborhoods that are at risk, and we need to be very careful about that. And I really recommend that you guys make sure that you are getting the information on planning and zoning, and that you're getting the liquor licenses so that you know what's coming up and you can speak your mind to it.
Thank you. Can we read the question again?
I'm good, thank you though. So I think that with the binding agreements, they should have to be renegotiated every single time, whenever they don't inherit rather. Because you can always renegotiate the same thing over and over again whenever you're getting a new one. It's like how whenever you renegotiate a contract, you can renegotiate the exact same contract and get the exact same deal over and over again if it's mutually beneficial to both parties. But whenever you inherit it and you're grandfathered into it, there's not a really easy way out of it. All of a sudden, you might be trapped into a binding agreement you might not want to be in. And likewise, whenever what if something drastically changes or there's a binding agreement in there that is just not sustainable anymore for whatever reason, and therefore without an easy way to remove that binding agreement, then this gives room to renegotiate that.
Thank you. The budget will be read, I believe, on Thursday.
Yeah.
So, describe your perspective on the metro budget, and what would your priorities be citywide, and how would this enhance life in District 21?
Okay, it's my turn.
Yes.
Okay. So some of the things that I've asked for in there, I've asked for $125,000 to match what we've got for the state park. I've asked for $300,000 for something that's not really exciting, but something that's very necessary. If you walk in Iroquois Park and you go around Rundale Road, you'll see many places where the drains are collapsing. And that $300,000, I believe, is only enough to fix 3 or 4 of them. Yeah, those are expensive, but that needs to be done. I have also asked for some other things in the district. Like, I've asked for, I wish I would say it was gonna work, but I don't think it's gonna bite, but I've asked for the Kroger building to be used as a community center. I've asked for $10 million for that. I don't think that one's gonna happen because we've got a larger one here, but wouldn't it be wonderful if we had somewhere where kids could play basketball? So we're looking at some other alternatives for that one. But yeah, there's many things, and the priority for housing. The mayor usually puts good money in there, and we want to make sure there's more if at all possible.
On the metro budget and your priorities citywide, and things that would enhance District 21.
Yes, so my, when we're talking about just allocating funds, my number one thing I would love to see is, more money going to those immigrant facilities. I would also love more money to go to the TARC network, because, that needs to grow. I think they've been doing fantastic with the money they've been given, but unfortunately they just need more money, I believe. And that would have improved the quality of life because, not everybody has access to a good car, and it would help people get to work. I would also like to, grow the social worker first responder program to be more than a specific number you have to call, and specifically ask for it when the circumstances are right to be. You can call 911 and actually maybe get a first responder. And I also believe in actually fixing the roads. I do believe in fixing the infrastructure. I understand this is a lot of money. This is the dream wish list of. This is the all-star list, and not all of it could get done, but hopefully, fingers crossed.
Metro budget.
Gotcha. Very excited to see what we have in store for this next budget. Budgets are important. They set the tone for overall city and district spending. I'm a big advocate for a budget that invests more into traditional, transitional, and permanent housing for folks, and different housing programs so that folks have the ability to move up into housing, move directly into housing based directly on the type of needs that they have. I'm also big on funding public transit access. TARC needs to be fully funded with a few concessions to come back for riders, and expanding the access to that, as well as funding community-based safety alternatives. So funding those deflection programs and youth opportunity funding. I think directly in 21, a lot of that looks similar to what Betsy is saying. Not only do we need, some investment in the little Kroger that has closed, but we also need to revitalize and take care of the community centers and what we do have. I mean, when you tour through those, we have not taken the love into them that they deserve and what they do for our community.
Thank you. Let's talk about affordable housing. Housing in District 21 is generally more affordable than other areas of town. This invites investors, often out-of-town investors, to outbid people seeking housing for themselves and their families, meaning that South Louisville, Southwest Louisville, and West Louisville have more transitional houses than the other areas of Louisville. Would you push the county attorney's office to draft an ordinance that would?
I can say it.
So, yeah, you asked the question. I'm sorry, this is confusing.
Okay. Would you push the county attorney's office to draft an ordinance that would prevent the Board of Zoning Adjustment from granting a conditional use permit for such uses as office space, short-term rentals, or transitional houses if the neighborhood where the use is proposed is more than 5 points below the countywide average for owner-occupied homes. The goal here is to get more owner-occupied houses in District 21. That's the goal of my question.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I think that's a great question, and an angle that I'll truthfully say that I hadn't thought of previously. But I think it is important to limit the amount of investors that come in and buy up from determined homeowners. I mean, I'm a homeowner, I just bought my house within 3 years, and I understand how hard it is getting outbid. I don't want to answer too deeply because I don't want to say something that I would change later on with more research. But I think it's absolutely pivotal to invest in programs that protect owner-occupied homes, and invest in true affordable housing rather than short-term rentals or commercial use.
Okay, so when the original ordinances regarding short-term rentals came in, we didn't have many. You look at the Highlands and you'll see that there are streets that are like 25% short-term rentals already. And now it's starting to hit us. We get a new proposal for a short-term rental about every week. And I know that there's one that I know we're fighting right now because it's a 600-foot radius. And the 600 feet is property line to property line. And the owner of the house is asking for a variance, and we are strongly opposed to that. We are trying to work on an ordinance that somehow expands the radius. And we have talked to the county attorney about the proposal to use the rental rates and the homeowner rates. And it's very difficult to do to get the data that is needed for that. We do support it, but it's going to be very hard to do.
Yes, so as far as, investor homes as, in short-term rentals, that's definitely something that's just tearing through Louisville, like what Betsy said, they're all over the place in the Highlands. And that's not something I would like to see happen to this community. One of the things I love about my neighborhood is that everybody knows everybody on my street. And the moment you bring short-term rentals into the equation, that's not going to be the case anymore. You're going to see a different face every single week. So definitely something needs to happen about that, right? Something that needs to be stopped in some way, shape, or form. The unfortunate side effect of the transitionary housing could get caught in crossfire of that. So if there, a way that just stops the investors from plucking homes out of young homeowners is definitely something I 100% support.
Okay, here's one about you can't please people all the time. When making decisions and voting on issues at Metro Council, do you vote the way your constituents tell you that they want you to vote? Or do you believe that a larger social issue may be present beyond what your constituents want and vote against what your constituents have told you that they want in favor of the societal issue?
I do believe every vote that I've taken has been in support of what my constituents are asking for. We frequently get emails, and I'll tell you, if you want to email your council members or anybody else, send them a personal letter telling them a story. If you send a form letter, they're not going to read it. They're just going to send it into a pile. So make sure when you're advocating, you make it personal.
Would you vote against what your constituents asked you to vote for if you thought there was a greater good?
No. Almost certainly no. Because they're the reason I got into office. It's one of those things that if every single constituent is felt the need to reach out to me and talk to me at town halls and tell me this is what I want, this is what I need, then that's the way I'm voting. But if I'm haven't heard anything from a constituent on an issue, then I'm trusting that you all would have elected me to vote a certain way and vote the way that I feel is appropriate on that issue. But if I'm being told by my constituents to vote a way, then that's the way I'm going to vote, because then I'm going to start talking in circles.
I mean, I think every politician's gonna tell you they're gonna vote for your best interest. But I think it's important to say, I mean, that's a very broad question for a lot of very poignant, very personal issues that we're experiencing today. And I have faith that District 21 is a fair district. We're an equitable district. We're a district that cares about our neighbors and people in our district. So I have no faith that my personal decision-making of how I felt would never more than align with our constituents. But if it came down to a good concern cause where somebody might be harmed, but 51% said they're for it, I think that brings a deeper conversation. And if we can't come to a consensus, I'm a person for what's right and what's just. I'm also a person for explanation of why that decision is made. I don't think we'd ever go astray here in District 21, but I'd rather be honest and tell you. If I think it's gonna hurt somebody who didn't deserve it, I'm not going for it.
Snow removal is not a sexy part of the budget.
But it's sure interesting when we have to talk about
The
it.
snow and ice kept people from work and having safe access to sidewalks and streets. People were ruined in their houses. Would you use your discretionary funds to pay for snow removal?
Yeah.
Who's next?
I think it is.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes, because as someone who during the last ice storm, I was unemployed during that time, and so I'm like, I'm bored. I don't have anything better to do. You can't play video games all day, so I grabbed my snow shovel and was just shoveling people's yards around the neighborhood, and I can tell you, a lot of people were very, very grateful for to be able to get to work, and very grateful for my help. And it's one of those things where, it's nice that I was there. It was nice that there was just some unemployed board guy who was helping out people by shoveling snow, but also like, what if I wasn't there? And there needs to be someone that needs to just be there to help people get to work in case it happens again, which because of climate change is almost certain to happen again.
discretionary funds for snow removal.
I think it's a good mix. Nobody likes the snow and being snowed in, except for me. I love it. It's peaceful. But I think it takes a good mix, right? I think there are some main streets that aren't covered by the city's main snow routes that we absolutely should be diverting funds to pay for. But I'm also here for alternative methods. How many people got quotes to snowplow their driveway? It's crazy. The quotes we got in our neighborhood, our side of the park, were really big. So I'd be concerned about cost effectiveness and especially sometimes the frequency of which we get it. But I'm also happy to help use neighborhood discretionary funds to fund innovative programs like block captain programs. So if you're out and you're capable and able, helping fund and say, hey, can we do gift cards or checks and help fund people for helping take care of their neighborhoods where we can. And of course, I got an able body. Let's get out there. Let's push some snow.
Okay, I spent 4 days in a row shoveling out entrances to my neighborhood on Southern Parkway, shoveling out an intersection because I knew as soon as the snowplows come through, they were gonna bury it. We shoveled out a driveway that was 100 feet long, got it done in 30 minutes. One of the things that really surprised me is the fact that people didn't think they could shovel their driveways. They felt very helpless. And I'm 64 years old. I'll go shovel your driveway. I don't have a problem with that. And I think it's really important that we make sure that people know that they are able to do some of these things. They look at all that snow and they think, I can't possibly do that. But the reality is, a lot of it you can. Now, we have talked about contracting with a snowplow service to get some of our roads. And we've also advocated for making sure that the roads that need it most get shoveled, that get plowed, okay? We cannot realistically reach every road. We wish we could. But one of the things that has been suggested is that we focus on the roads in lower income neighborhoods because it's most important for them to actually physically get to a job.
Thank you. D1 has,
Yes.
D1 has multiple areas that generate huge revenue. Kentucky Fair and Exposition Center, the airport, Derby City Gaming, and the Highland Festival grounds. What would you do to see if you could get some of their revenues to help D1 infrastructure and residents?
Okay, I start this one? Versus Savannah? That's not maybe she.
Who answered
Okay.
last?
So I answered last.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Then
you start.
It's me. Okay, yes.
Okay.
Can you repeat the question one more time? Yeah, I'm so sorry.
So how would you get to know the entities like KC or the airport, Derby City Gaming? To understand them and see how their revenues can help D1, 21 infrastructure and residents.
Yeah, I think it's important to create good relations with our neighbors and make sure they're being good neighbors to residents in 21. Too often, companies like KC, the airport, the Highland Festival grounds, they see a lot of really big business. They bring a lot of tourists in. But oftentimes we don't feel the benefit comes back to 21. It feels like we inherit the burden, the strain, the noise, the traffic, but we don't usually see a benefit come back from that. So I'm very interested in creating strong and healthy partnerships and reevaluating that economic impact that they have not only across the city but in the district, and making sure that matches the funds and the advancement coming back into the district. And also partnering with those groups to help fund and match funds for projects going on.
Okay, I'm next. Okay, so first of all, the airport is federal property. The fairgrounds is state property. The gaming center on Poplar Level Road is actually exempt from paying taxes. The one downtown has to pay taxes. And I will tell you that we had a debate recently in Metro Council about industrial revenue bonds. So we're giving Churchill Downs a tax break. I argued against that. I can tell you what I have done to help make sure that people who visit our city, it's always surprised me, people get off the airport, they go to a hotel, and they go to the fairgrounds. And they may never go anywhere else. And for the longest time, Phillips Lane looked awful. There was no sidewalk, there was no way to safely walk to the McDonald's. So as a project in the Center for Neighborhood, okay, I did a walkability study, and that saved 2 years in getting sidewalks put in and trees planted to make that area look better and more accessible.
Yes. So it sounds like a lot of these places, it'd be like squeezing water from a stone. Because, if one's federal, one's state, and we just, for one is a charitable gambling operation, whatever that
Not
is.
charitable.
Yeah.
It's profitable.
Yeah, whatever that is. It sounds like it's going to be very difficult to get taxes out of them directly. I am interested in actually working with them to have them co-sponsor events similar to how the Kentucky Lottery works with Keys money, and maybe we could have them uplift citizens from there. Otherwise, there are more aggressive tactics you can use, like toll roads and stuff, which is not fun. Nobody wants to do that, but that is squeezing water from a stone right there, and unfortunately, that is something that exists. But I would much rather prefer to work with them.
Here's a question about workforce and economic mobility. Housing instability is deeply tied to income volatility. What role should Metro Council play in creating pathways to stable living wage employment in District 21? And how does that connect to your housing strategy?
Okay. So, mine?
Yeah.
Okay. So, first of all, is making sure that we have sufficient workforce training. And we are very fortunate as far as helping people. There's a thing called Goodwill's Another Way. And you guys might not be aware of that. But what they do is they pick up people who are living on the street and they give them jobs. and pay them $50 for the day and feed them. And they go out and they pick up trash. So like one of the places that's frequently noted for dumping is Crittenden Drive. And I called them and I said, could you guys go out there and pick up the trash along Crittenden Drive? And they cleaned it up. They actually, and I hadn't even thought about this one, but I gotta remember it, they were shoveling driveways in the snow. So that was an interesting use I hadn't even thought of. But there's that, and that's a way for them to build a work record and help them lift themselves up. We have numerous examples like, it used to be called Youth Build, it's 502. But anyway, that's a youth training program for construction jobs and such. Okay.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure, housing instability is deeply tied to income volatility. What role should Metro Council play in creating pathways to stable living wage employment in District 21? And how does that connect to your housing strategy?
Yes, so when I was working on my last job, one of the things that stuck out to me is that a lot of the unions around here provide training on more advanced tasks, like the welding union provides training on how to weld. So there could be some partnerships with unions to actually train in more advanced skills to help people get good paying jobs and get work experience. And also now they're part of a union. I know that the welders union has pensions and a lot of good stuff. So that could be a good way to help with what's the word? Solidify income, stabilize income. Also, the Goodwill program that Betsy was talking about is a very, very good pathway. And I think that's how I would move forward, is just work with the unions.
Yeah, I think folks have mentioned some really good non-governmental programs that are nonprofits and receive their own funding that are also highly saturated. And are used by folks that more than just across the district or saturated with folks from across the city utilizing them. I think it's important not just to throw all our eggs in one bucket, but not only that, but working on city partnerships with trade unions, with programs like Goodwill, and helping develop funding to expand their programs, and also creating neighborhood resources like job fairs. I see a lot of job fairs happen everywhere across the city, and maybe I've missed some here, but I see very, very few here. We're a very heavily industrial district. We have so many businesses, small businesses, big businesses, industrial businesses, and yet, they're hiring, but I don't see us helping create hiring events, learning what folks need, and focusing on public transit and access so folks can actually get to those jobs as well.
All right. In this past session of the General Assembly, numerous bills were filed to take power away from Louisville. Just dodged a bullet on short-term rentals. Such as Senate Bill 4, also that recreating Jefferson County Public School Board. What do you see as Metro Council's role in building bridges with Frankfurt?
I think it's me. Yes. Working with Frankfurt and Frankfurt's relationship with Louisville has always been dicey, as far as I can remember. There have been numerous attacks on Louisville in the past, in Louisville and Lexington, not just Louisville. We're not big people out here, but we are. And I think that one way we could, as Metro Council members do, is I think just talk with them. You know what I mean? That's the first and most obvious step, and that's obviously already being done. But also, I think really working with our state representatives to kind of advocate for us in the General Assembly, and I think those would be good, very, very good first steps.
Frankfurt's a beast. And I love Frankfurt. I spend a lot of time in Frankfurt. A lot of my policy and activism has transpired from Metro Council doing public advocacy into helping shape and advocate for policies on the state level as well. It's really critical as one of the largest and probably the largest over Lexington metropolitan area in the state, which means we're gonna get a lot of critique and a lot of tone setting from Frankfurt as we're a leader in the state. So it's really important for us to have critical relationships in the state level. I'm thankful to have a lot of friends and be very in tune. And I think it's important for Louisville, because we're such tone setters, to set the curve. We've seen a lot of good ordinances start in Louisville on a city level and also make their way up to Frankfurt on the state level. And I think we can have that same amount of influence. So as long as we're willing to make good partnerships and stay in the loop on both sides, between Frankfurt and Louisville.
Okay, so as I'm sure you all are aware, we are highly a Democrat city, Democrat-led. And the state legislature, we are in a very small minority. And it is vitally important that we as council representatives go down to Frankfurt, sit in committees, talk to representatives of the Republican Party. We've got the Democrats, they're on our side, but that doesn't swing a lot of votes. So we need to make sure that we are talking to the Republicans and explaining why these things are important. So that's where good advocacy comes in.
Thank you. Continuing the theme of advocacy, acknowledging that this is a nonpartisan primary, we have seen a lot of partisan activity in our Metro Council. What strategies would you employ to work with council members who belong to different parties so you can actually get things done?
Okay, so I'll tell you what we've already done. So there's an organization called Braver Angels. And the purpose of Braver Angels is to get, they call them Reds and Blues, in the same room, not to change minds, but just to listen to each other and understand where the other person's coming from and give them a chance to tell their stories. So I worked it took me 2 years to get this, but back in March, we had Braver Angels come in and we had what was called Common Ground. And we actually got almost half of Metro Council in one room, and we talked about what it means to be treated with dignity. So we now have a dignity pledge, and that includes things like, don't decide that you already know what somebody's thinking, take the time to ask. And I remember one of the things that stuck out during this meeting was that Khalil Batshon, who's Republican, he's also from Palestine. And he shared that no one has ever asked him what he thinks about what's going on over there. And that's the kind of thing that's heartbreaking.
Yes, that is heartbreaking. So what I would do to work across the aisle is that a lot of my policies are not just in District 21, but also work for all of Louisville. And I would plan on, talking with, people from the partisan side of the aisle, the Republican side of the aisle, and just talk to them with, numbers and stuff like that. And also, I understand that, people are people, you know what I mean? They have strong feelings about certain things. I know I certainly do. And it might be easy to say, oh, well, you should believe me because, I have feelings and I'm objectively correct. But I think that maybe just meeting people face to face over lunches and stuff like that, and just long meetings for things that are for the better of Louisville is certainly what I think will help the most.
I think it's important to remember that in every district, in every neighborhood, across this whole city, there are Democrats, Republicans, Independents, Green Party, people who don't care, and people who really, really care but don't choose to label themselves as any of the other. And when you're elected to public service, you are not just solely elected by the people who identify the same politically as you. And you are chosen to represent even those who maybe didn't vote for you or don't align politically with you. And it operates the same way once you're in those chambers. I think it's important to remember that at the end of the day, I'm not in Metro Council to advance a Democratic agenda, even though I agree with those. It's that I'm here to represent people and to advance people in a district. Every single person has needs. Every single person has something that's important to them. And I think when we talk about finding common ground in Metro Hall and having to work along the aisle with others who may not identify politically with me, is it for the greater good? Is it for the people meeting there on that common ground?
All right, let's talk about violence. What can local government in partnership with local organizations to help LMPD reduce gun and gang violence? We'll start with you, Ben.
Yes, so I think that the first part of that question is working with a lot of neighborhood organizations. I think that the first part of that question is working with a lot of neighborhood organizations. But I also think that though LMPD is mentioned directly in this question, I don't know if they need to always be there in those events. Because I think that the way you reduce crime and violence and gang violence is to build a stronger community, you know what I mean, where people truly do care about each other, you know what I mean? And there are oftentimes a lot of people who don't feel safe around police, and I think that really building strong community is the first true step to stopping those types of violence.
Yes, what can local government in partnership with local organizations do to help LMPD reduce gun and gang violence?
Yeah, I think it's a really heavy question. We have seen the violence continue to increase all across the city. And I think continuing to increase police presence, and police tools isn't doing much. When we look at the numbers year over year and we see a budget continue to increase and a continued enforcement on police, when we know there's a shortage and there's a lot going on with that, it's not the answer. So it comes back to a prevention conversation. I know city administration, people in that have been against working with Cities United previously. They're an organization out of Baltimore that has some very well data-backed, proven solutions to reducing gun violence and violent crime throughout their cities through prevention-based and community-based safety strategies. I think it's very big to start involving partners like that who work on a national scale with metropolitan cities the same size as us, and then bringing in the local experts, people with lived experience of gun violence who are in these communities and know what affects them and what contributes it and how it impacts them afterwards, bringing those folks to the table as well and really building based off of that.
Okay, so first of all, most of those numbers are actually going down. They've been going down consistently since COVID. And it's hard to say why they're going down. This is happening nationally. But there are things that are happening in our city. So we've got the Office of Violence Prevention, which works with numerous groups out in the neighborhoods most impacted. And you'll find that there's a lot of male role models in those groups. It's like, I survived this, you can make better choices. There are also people who work in the hospitals who meet with families of someone who may have been shot, may have died, may have just be injured, but work with them to help them settle down and make better choices. Because a lot of what we've got, we're not the targets. It's young people who know each other, and you shot my cousin, so I'm gonna shoot you. Well, now I'm gonna shoot you, and they're just going back and forth. It's like the Hatfields and the McCoys, so you have to break the cycle.
Just a personal aside, I'm on the JCPS crisis team. I've worked 8 shootings in the Coleridge Taylor Central area.
In what area?
11th and Chestnut, Coleridge Taylor and Central. And that's a lot of trauma for those kids,
Yeah.
teachers.
Over and over and over.
Yeah, and it's a lot. Okay, so I'm sorry.
Yes.
So we're going to closing statements now. So you have 90 seconds to give us your last thoughts, why people should vote for you or what you bring to the table.
I went first last, so
That's okay. We'll just go in order.
All right. I got 90 seconds.
Yes.
Oh, I can breathe while I talk this time. It's crazy how little that feels when you're in it. Folks, just to remind me again, my name's Savannah Hughes and I'm running for District 21. I cared. This has been my life's pathway. My own lived experience has shaped the career that I've chosen, and I've chosen to take that to a different level. We know that on a city level, on a state level, and on a federal level, we're in really critical times for infrastructure of policy, for protecting neighbors, for setting the tone for the economy and the prices of eggs. I'm about to buy chickens because I think it's cheaper. But it's important that we're putting the right people in office, and that's people who care, people who understand policy and how to take change and turn it into something tangible and sustainable. We don't have time for politicians and backing that are considered for political control, and we don't have time for people that are pastime politicians that are just there to collect a check and say that they ran for office and they won. We need people who are going to speak up in those chambers, who are going to show up in communities, and people who genuinely care and will show up and do the work every day. I hope that today is just a little bit of showing you that I've done my thought, I've done my research, and that I'm truly showing up. And I hope you'll invite the opportunity to reach out, ask me more questions. And biggest, whether you vote for me or anyone else, show up. Show up to the polls, please.
Okay, so my name is Betsy Rui, and I said I am the current Metro Council rep. And I can tell you that this job has a very steep learning curve, and you need to build relationships with the people in the different departments, because sometimes they work really good for you, but if they don't like you, they're not gonna work so good. So you need to make sure you've got these relationships, and you know who you need to talk to for this, that, or the other thing. So that's something that I've built over the past 3.5 years. Back there on the table, you have a whole list of accomplishments of things that I've done through the office. And I do this job because I want to build communities. When I moved into the Beachmont area, it was the first time I ever felt like I was in a community where I belonged and people accepted me for who I am. There was no keeping up with the Joneses, I'm just me. And I've got all my friends who support me and believe I could do a good job, and I have been doing a good job. And I love this job. And I want to continue doing it and building on the success that we've had in my first term. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Ben Spalding. Again, I am also running for District 21 Metro Council. And I think that I want this for everyone, that everyone should have a good life in District 21. Everyone should grow up and be able to look at their neighbor and wave hello. And, and it doesn't matter if, you say hello in English or Spanish or Vietnamese, you should be able to go outside and wave hello. And that's something I feel that especially in current years we've lost. And it's due to no part of anyone in the community. I want to help create this community and make it stronger and safer and more empowered. I want to help build this community up to be even better than it is right now. I moved here during the middle of COVID, and it was incredible. Just having people having porch conversations to keep each other company. It was truly just an amazing experience. I want that for everyone in Louisville, and I don't want that to just be a Beachmont thing. I don't want that to just be a District 21 thing. Everyone in Louisville needs to have that experience. And this has been a wonderful time being here, and thank you all for showing up.
Let's give our candidates a round. It was a busy night, and there were lots of things going on. So thank you so much for bringing your knowledge and your passion and your expertise to this. I'm sure if people want to ask you questions, that you'll stick around for a little bit. So that concludes on behalf of the League of Women Voters and South Louisville Community Ministries. Thank you for coming. We are adjourned.
Thank you for coming out. You all didn't show up. I mean, we want to talk to a wall, but if you're talking to each other.